land insights, market trends, industry experts. Welcome to the Land Department Podcast, the state of land and energy as we see it.
Hey, Land Department, we have a unique episode for you today where we're sharing a guest appearance from Brent Broussard on the AAPL's Landman TV series companion podcast. They review episode 8 of one of the hottest shows right now, The Landman, on Paramount Plus. And really, they talk about what Hollywood got right and wrong on the episode. And it's really interesting to see the different critiques that they give. And you probably felt some of these critiques yourself as you were watching the show, but it's a great show. Listening to this episode will probably help if you are following along with the Landman TV series. Check it out. If you're interested, also go and listen to the AAPLs where they cover every single episode as they are released. Brett was really thrilled that he was able to join it, and we thought we'd share this with our listeners. Check it out. Thanks.
Welcome back to another episode of the Landman TV series companion podcast. I'm your host, Chad Smith, and today we're talking about episode 8. Joining me today, I have Brent Broussard, Robert Rice, and Jodi Gallegos. Thank you for all joining us today. If you would like to give a little bit of an introduction, Robert, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, name's Robert Rice. Been working at Continental Land Resources for the last 18 years or so. We're a land brokerage company headquartered out of Edmond, Oklahoma, but obviously do work in Permian, Ohio, the Utica area, Rockies, North Dakota, all the fun spots. So, and of course, Brent is my favorite competitor, so he can go next.
Well, I mean, even us pirates have buddies in the business. So, yeah, I'm Brent Broussard. I'm president of Dudley Land Company. Very similar career path to Robert. I've worked with Dudley for over 20 years now. Started in Oklahoma City. Dudley Land Company did, but I'm in Houston, worked Texas my entire career, and office in Katy, Texas now. So, yep, all the same places that Robert and his team were. We've been pretty fortunate to stay busy over the years. So. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. And Jodi?
I am Jodi Gallegos, and I work for the American Association of Professional Landmen, and I am the Director of Operations here and have been with the organization for almost 14 years.
Very good. Thank you again for joining us. And today's episode 8, a little lighter on the technical parts, I think, but I thought there were still a few pretty good spots for us to bring up. The first one I wanted to get into was Rebecca versus Cooper. So we see at that episode that Rebecca and Nathan come in to talk to Ariana about the settlement, and they're playing this kind of good cop, bad cop, or good lawyer, bad lawyer scenario. And my experience, at least with any of the attorneys in oil and gas I've been around, they've been more in the line with Nathan, very kind people. But I imagine there maybe are a couple Rebeccas out there. Have you ever ran into any just shark attorneys working in oil and gas?
Not in my 18 years.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Brent.
She's pretty extra sharky,
Yeah.
You run into the snaky characters, right? A lot of folks, and I think a lot of times it's in the eye of the receiving end, or are you across the table from that person? Well, they're probably a snaky shark to you. But if they're representing you and they're on your side, they're everything you want them to be.
Yeah.
So you see all kinds. I think obviously it's dramatized, but oftentimes in negotiations, whether it's, obviously in the context of a settlement for a death, obviously that's one thing, but in the land profession, you're going to have the negotiations and you're going to have a good cop, bad cop. Robert and I are field landmen. A lot of what we do is landowner negotiations, and oftentimes you'll have buyers on a team or an attorney on a project that you're maybe is representing a mineral owner, and they're going to posture. A lot of it's posture, and a lot of it's a certain amount of, you're going to tell the person across the table, your side of the negotiation. Hey, this is why you need to do this. This is important. You're leaving a lot of money on the table, all those things. And then usually when it boils down to it, somebody slides in on the back end and plays the good cop and kind of helps smooth things over. And ultimately you get something done and don't end up in court. But
I agree with that completely, Brent. I definitely don't think I've ever seen an attorney say, what'd she say? I'll make up my own truth.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's, I think most of the attorneys in our industry are pretty straight.
Yeah.
Like I said, most of the attorneys I've met in oil and gas are real good people. And so don't want that misconception getting too far out there. I mean, she's a little Hollywood dramatized there. But
it shows the difference in in an in-house counsel, right? A company attorney and a litigator, right? A litigator presents a believable truth, whether it's the truth or not. That's their job, right? They're there to present the case for whatever side they're representing. Company person they've got to go to work with people. They're working across the table with a counterpart, on another E&P next month on the next deal. So you can't be too sharky. A litigator comes in, they're singular focus.
Yeah,
The best
they're
interest
creating a
of my
narrative
client.
and controlling that narrative.
Yeah. So, fortunately, I hadn't been involved in too much litigation. I think, but I was cited in one annual meeting seminar for a lawsuit that we were involved in years and years ago. But on our side of the business, Robert can probably add there, we don't get involved in litigation too much. So
No. Our buddies are the title attorneys.
yeah. And they're all
Exactly.
great.
Yeah.
Well, in that scene, this is something that I'm not sure of it, but so I wanted to bring it up. When they're talking about that NDA that they want Ariana to sign, and they say, you can't sue us for anything in the future, no matter if whatever happens, so on and so forth. Is that common for a settlement agreement to have that kind of verbiage in there?
I can't really speak to that. Most of the NDAs that I've signed and probably that Brent signed are more just around confidentiality of our client's information. So I don't think I've ever even actually seen a settlement NDA.
But I mean, there's a lesson in that, right? Anybody can put anything on paper, and if you sign it, you're bound to it.
Yeah.
And so the lesson there for the land community, if we're going to try to relate this to what we do as landmen, is you read the document. Anything that's in front of you, you read the document. Whether you're examining title or you're reviewing a JOA from a counterpart, or you're reading a lease, right? Read the document. We see all kinds of stuff slip into granting language of royalty deeds, right? It's the devil's in the details, and it could very well be put there. And if you put it in the document and you sign it, then it's upon someone else it's upon you to prove later on, if it's a problem, that it wasn't legal, and that's an uphill battle when you acknowledge something. So there's probably a little lesson in that, whether it's viable or not. It's a good lesson.
That in and of itself makes you think twice about clicking "I agree to these terms and conditions" whenever you download an app from the App Store.
Yeah.
All the
And
time.
nobody reads those.
Better make sure you understand it.
Yeah, and so another point to that scene, Cooper comes in, he's like, "Oh, well, you shouldn't do this and that and the other," and I mean, it's a great scene for him. But same time, I kept thinking, any lawyer, especially one of Rebecca's caliber, would probably say, you need to recuse yourself because this is a huge conflict of interest right here. I can't imagine that they would just let him sit there and dictate the terms of the settlement whenever he was part of the accident that happened.
Yeah, absolutely not. I agree with you, Chad. I mean, it's nothing's really fast when it comes to this business and that kind of stuff. Wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen. Well, you think it wouldn't happen, but until I mentioned a case that I was named personally in Dudley Land. We were negotiating a deal on behalf of a client. Got far down the line, we sent an offer letter that they accepted, and then our client backed out of the deal. This was 2008-9. We were talking about $20 million lease, right, in the Haynesville. Well, you really don't. When you're involved in the day in and day out of a deal or whatever it may be, in this case, obviously it was settlement for a death. That's obviously one thing. But, as it relates to landman, until you've been involved in something and had to go through a deposition and go through an actual court case and sit down and talk to litigators and work through that process, you really don't know, man, I shouldn't say that. And that kind of comes with experience. I always tell a lot of our landmen and people that we work with, when you're involved in something, what you say and what you do can always come back, right? So, but until you're involved in that, you don't really know, and you're just responding to what's in front of you, trying to do what you think is right. You're trying to get the lease bought. You're trying to get the deal done, and oftentimes, until it hits the fan, you don't know that maybe you did something right or you didn't do something right. And the character in the show is 22-year-old kid. He's damn near got blew up, so all his buddies died. He's in the middle of a early love triangle. Just got beat up, damn near got shot and stabbed in the guts. He's probably a little passionate.
Gonna start an oil company,
Yeah, to be rich, start an oil company.
Let's start an oil
I ain't gonna blow nobody up.
He's had a rough start.
He's had a rough go. Hell, man.
rough
I
start.
thought I had it bad. So, you really don't know. He'll probably look back at that and say it was a mistake, but he's in love, sounds like.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd say anything for some good Mexican food, like some good homemade. I'm down.
Yeah.
So do you think, or do you know, is it common that in something like what they're presenting, they're going, to try to get the settlement signed? Is it common that they would go to the individual's house, or would they try to meet like in a more neutral location, or?
In my experience, it would be a neutral location, but again, like Brent said, I've definitely never had to deal with settling a death settlement type thing. So,
Yeah, it's something like that. Obviously, it's pretty unique. I would think in that situation, it's a little extreme, but it's also not uncommon. You go where your lessor is, or you go where your party is, and if you need to sit down, God, we're landmen. We've all negotiated a lot of big deals at a kitchen table, or in a diner, or wherever, front porch, office. So, the settlement stuff, yeah, if it's a big deal, and typically when it comes to a case or it's really getting to be serious, yeah, you would do that in front of attorneys and in an office. But not uncommon to do some pretty meaningful deals wherever you can get down and get in front of the person that you're trying to get the deal done with.
Spoiler alert, I think you see a little bit of that in the next episode.
Yeah, I stopped at 8. I didn't want to get confused if I was talking about 8 or 9.
Yeah, I probably should have done that because I went ahead.
So switching topics a little bit, I think the episode kind of starts off with Monty meeting with the governor, and they get the approval for the Texas National Guard to come out, which, it makes for a great part of the show. And I think they mention it, but still, it seemed to me like you probably shouldn't be shooting missiles anywhere near active oil production. Regardless of how far apart on the land it is, I would just imagine, all in all, that is a bad idea.
Well, I just kept thinking, what's the name of their company? MTEX, or
MTEX.
do they own the 75,000 acres surface, or do they have some serious, surface provisions on their lease, I guess, allowing the military just to go firing rockets everywhere.
I thought the exact same thing, Robert. Whenever there was like, so how do they have these rights? Can they let the National Guard? What's this rancher going to think?
Yeah.
What about the cows?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about all this stuff,
75,000 acres, you can shoot anyway. Just shoot that way,
Well, my favorite was when Tommy said, you can build a Starbucks if you want.
Yeah.
Well, what got me was he was like, hell, you can dove hunt out there for all I care. I was like, oh, like dove hunt? Oh, where? Okay. Now that's different. I need that kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, because at the beginning of the season, he meets with the cartel, and he gets him to sign the agreement and everything. So that made me think the cartel is the surface owner for all this land, right?
Yeah.
And you're blowing up those surface owners on their own land. I can't imagine that doesn't fall back on Tommy being I told him,
Sounds like the cartel, to Brent's point, didn't read the entire document. So
they did not. Yeah.
On them.
And It sounds to me like that flow chart resembles more of like an East Texas flow chart than a South Texas flow chart. So, yeah, there's a lot of gray area there. I don't know. Maybe they own the 75,000 acres next to the cartel lease.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. But I mean, well, we're not going to condone them distributing their drugs out there. I mean, it's kind of their land. They can do what they want, right? So if it doesn't open you up for target practice for the National Guard. So I thought that was a pretty interesting point there, and we'll see, I guess, if that falls back on Tommy, the deaths of the cartel members.
Yeah, that kind of seems, obviously where the show's heading, right? That's going to be the climax of the season is Tommy facing off versus the cartel, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Man, the scene where the Tommy brings the boys, his roughneck crew out there, his workover crew, like I thought about that. I was taking some notes because I knew I was going to talk about this, and I have a hard time being serious about a lot of things. And so like I saw that and I was like, oh man, that's like brokers. Like the company only calls us when they got stuff they need to do they don't want to do or they can't be associated with. That's where we come. That's where Robert and I come in. We do all the stuff that they don't or can't do.
We do it with a smile on our
the knock around guys.
Yeah, like so me and Robert, we're in our band of band pirates out here holding we're holding the 9mm sideways, keeping the danger away.
Figuratively, of course.
Figuratively, yeah. That would be in violation of all of our MSAs. So we do not carry guns on the job, and we will not face off the cartel. But figuratively speaking, we kind of do that.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the last episode we did, covering episode 7, and just all the violations, all the OSHA violations. I mean,
was that Hamill on the last one?
No, that was a couple episodes ago. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but just they'd have a field day with handing out violations for you're carrying guns and you're doing this and that and the other. I mean, holy moly!
Like he had what was it, episode 1 or 2 or something like that? Well, who has like a full-on fire suit outfit, helmet, mask in their work truck? I don't know, man. Tommy's a dude, man. Tommy's got he's got all kinds of stuff going on. He is prepared.
Every hat that you could imagine.
All rolled into one.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, a good surface landman ends up finding themselves in a lot of things and a lot of difficult conversations, unique conversations. Like when you're kind of living and breathing on somebody's property and it's their property, it's a constant battle. And so a lot of the things that, even though it's dramatized for TV, obviously, you're putting out fires, especially surface landman, and a good surface landman on an asset or in these major producing areas, the Haynesville, Marcellus, Utica, obviously the Permian, they're in the middle of it. And they deal with a lot, and they're the conduit, and they get deals done when it comes to surface land ownership and stuff like that. Tommy seems to be a little more involved in in the show in like the deals and kind of decision making. But at the small company level, maybe you are involved in that stuff. You're doing a little bit of everything, but surface landmen do put out fires. I got to give it to them, and a good surface landman can get things done. They really, really can. So, it's a little relatable, aside from the cartel face-offs.
You definitely had guys get guns pulled on them, but not by cartel.
Well, yeah. I don't think you got your stripes until you had a gun pulled on you. I had a guy throw a carburetor at my truck one time.
Hopefully he didn't get it there. I'm sure
it was heavy. Carburetor is a little heavy. It was from so it's a little weighty, a little beefy.
Well, that kind of segues into my next point is the stress of the job. So we see that Monty has, I think they said, his 5th heart attack. And being an executive of any company, regardless of the industry, is a stressful job. And I would imagine, unless you're Tommy Norris, being a landman probably isn't that stressful where you're going to have 5 heart attacks. But how stressful of a job is being a landman, aside from having carburetors thrown at you?
The stress for me in our industry is the ups and downs, especially The brokerage, I feel responsible that, if we don't have work for 30, 40, 50, 60 guys, field landman, and I bear a lot of that weight on my shoulders when, a lot of times it's out of my control and it's just the way of the industry. But that's usually the stress that wears on me. So luckily it's all right now. Hopefully, stays
that way. Yeah.
flat or with a sliding increase, but it's a tough industry to be in because when it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, we all deal with stress, right? And some people handle it differently. And some people's jobs put different stress on them, right? I mean, I always tell people like, man, how you doing? Well, I'm busy. I'm either busy trying to be busy or I'm busy being busy. And that you have stress on both sides. If Robert and I are on the service side of the business, so you only have one reputation. Nobody remembers how great you do. They always remember when something's messed up,
Yep.
and that sticks with you. And when you're responsible for the people that, have chosen to work with your firm or chosen to work on your crew or, work with your company, you're responsible for them. And over time, you get to know those people and, their families. And then you have the burden of, all right, I'm responsible for them and their livelihood and, them being able to provide for their families. And when you have the ups and downs, it's difficult, right? You lose people that are great. And oftentimes when you have the downturns, you lose those people and you can't get them back because they have to work.
Yep.
They're either going to get out of the industry or they're going to go work for Robert because he's fortunate to have a job, or come work for Dudley because Dudley's got a job. And people want steady pay and steady opportunity. And when you have those downturns, man, you lose your workforce and largely you lose your ability to perform. Those A players are critical. So, you're always stressed with that. God, the type of work you're doing, due diligence, super stressful. We just came through the end of the year. I'm sure Robert and them were like a lot of brokers where you're doing a lot of transactional stuff and you got your regular project work and then 3 due diligences come and you got to get them done in 30 days. And that's stressful across the board. Everybody involved, down to the individual landman, because they're working 12 hours a day and they're trying to do it before the holidays. And, they got to buy a gift for their wife and they got to go see their mother-in-law for Christmas and all the things, right? It can be a stressful job. And especially from the field side. I mean, that's where we can relate. And, but sometimes I wish I could just go back to running title because that's not too stressful. It really just depends on where you choose to kind of plant your flag in the business.
Yeah. So just like any industry, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah. 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 I mean, but unless you're getting shot up by the cartel, there's not the stress of like life or death. But I will say Tom Dudley had a couple of heart attacks back in the day. A shale boom will give you a heart attack or two. I can tell you that. Crazy landmen, but a busted MOR will give you damn near a heart attack every time.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about all the crazy situations that Tommy's gotten himself into, and it seems like they surveyed 10,000 landmen, took all their craziest stories and wrapped it all up into one guy for one season of a show. But I'll ask you guys, what are some of your craziest landman stories?
With NAPE coming up, most of mine probably revolve around NAPE, and those are usually best left in Houston. Work-wise, it's pretty boring for me. I don't know about you, Brent. When I started my career running title in Arkansas and tiny little courthouses, there just wasn't much going on. I didn't have a chance to get in too much trouble besides the casino back on the Oklahoma side. But you know what? Nothing too crazy in my early days, at least.
I mean, I haven't. I'm kind of like Robert. I've got things that I've gone through, and we've all been in those sketchy situations where it's like you go a long way down a one lane, a no outlet gravel road to go see somebody, get carburetors thrown at you. I've had that happen. Things like that happen. But for us, and I don't know if where Robert sits, but we kind of live vicariously through all our crazy landmen over the
Yes.
years. And if you do this for 20 years, we get exposure to a lot of different things that happen. And some of the stories are like, they're not funny when it's happening because it's like, again, you only got one reputation, and it comes back to Dudley or Continental, like, oh, Continental had these, crazy folks working for them. But I don't know. I had one time. We had some landmen. I'll tell this because it's almost 20 years ago. We were in East Texas, had some landmen talking about the casino. We were in Nacogdoches, right?
Okay.
Busy as can be, big crews, doing some work for EOG, leasing up the countryside, titling, putting units together, stresses all get out. And, we were kind of in the same season of the land business where you had a lot of 20-year landmen, and then you had just people that you had to try to train up and get in the business because there just weren't any 10-year landmen. So, with that, you're hiring people and you're checking them out. You're teaching them, you're training them, and then you're just trying to figure out if they're competent and if they're professional and this, that, and the other. With all that, you end up with some crazies in there from time to time. And we had a group of them that was working for us on a job. We'd hired them like 6 months before then, and they were kind of just getting by, getting work done. So we were leaving them on the crew. Well, I get a call on a Monday morning and an email with a newspaper clip, and it's one of my landmen in a arrest story where they had gone to Shreveport to the casino and partied their butts off in the casino all night. Well, the next morning there was like some kind of parade going on in Shreveport, and they walk out the casino and the parade was starting right there. Well, they jumped in a golf cart and took off. Well, it just so happened to be the mayor of Shreveport's like golf cart. They go for a joyride in the golf cart outside the casino before the parade, and the police arrest them, and they go to jail. And the articles about these landmen working for EOG in East Texas on a Haynesville leasing project or whatever, like, arrested for theft of the mayor's golf cart or whatever. So I got my client calling me like, what in the HE double hockey sticks is going on here, Brent? And I'm like freaking out. So like, anyway, of course I had to fire him, all that, all those things. But that's how I lost most of my hair, and I got most of the grades, stuff like that. So that's my podcast friendly crazy landman story.
We probably
All
hired
the
him
golf
next
carts
week.
in this town. You boys steal the mayor's golf cart.
No, I mean, I talked to him. I'm like, look, I hope y'all had a good time. It sounded like a blast, but I'm sorry, man. You're gone.
That was your last golf cart ride with this company.
I know, yeah, for sure. And then a relatable story that whenever I was watching the show, and they were talking about raviolis in a can in the man house. Well, I got thinking, I was like, you know what? I've eaten a can of raviolis in the Elegante Hotel in Beaumont. Cold raviolis. I stayed there for a year on a project in Beaumont. And I was like, I've done that. I get it. As a young landman, I was getting $10 a day per deal.
Yeah. Use every bit of it.
Robert, I had a question for you. Are you a hollandaise sauce guy or no hollandaise?
I am definitely a hollandaise sauce kind of guy.
Attaboy. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm a Cajun, man. Everything's got to have some sauce on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a hollandaise person. Jodi, what about you?
No, I'll pass.
Are
you asking for a crazy story?
Look, you want to give
crazy
one.
AAPL stories?
You have to.
Well, there's always lots of those, but I've really been. I was telling Chad earlier that I actually binge listened to the podcast series on Christmas Eve started, and finished up on my way home from a trip last Friday. And while I like the show, it's fun in some aspects, very dramatized and a lot of Hollywood, but I really have learned a lot listening to the podcasts and like hearing stories, with like Robert, you and Brent, just really kind of explaining like, well, no, this is what really happens. And that's a little too dramatized, but
Hollywood.
yeah, but to your point, Brent, like you made the comment, really, it just depends on for example, where you can go to get the deal done, or, to finally meet up to, get heads together and things like that. So it's been really eye-opening, some things that, because I'm not in the industry, right? Like, I'm not a landman. So it's been really eye-opening and educational to hear how it really happens.
You're definitely an honorary landman with 14 years at AAPL.
Gosh, you've earned your stripes. I mean, dealing
I
with
feel like I
landmen-
need to eat a cold can of ravioli before I can truly be
Yeah.
an honorary landman.
You can arrange that, Jodi.
So Chad, Jodi, I haven't watched or listened to all the podcast episodes, but has anyone yet done the math on how many cuss words per episode we're at on this show?
God,
I did
no,
it for
not
this
yet.
one. I counted every single one.
Did you?
Yeah.
What do you got?
We got 42 F-bombs, 10 S-words, and 7 others for a grand total of 59 cuss words in a 54-minute show. It's a little bit higher than the average for most landmen, I think, but
Tarantino would be proud.
Oh my God.
I have to watch it after my kids go to bed, and so it's hard for me to stay up that late, but I've tried.
Well, now we have to have a running count on the episodes.
Honestly, it was hard to keep track because they cuss so much. I'm pretty sure I missed some. I definitely missed some Spanish cuss words there at the end. My bellows get blown up.
I think you need an asterisk on that, because that's not. We need to bring in somebody. I got a South Texas landman I can have watch and give us a little count. Oh man.
Good deal. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Chad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, and thank you for inviting us on, and thank y'all for doing this and everything that y'all do to support landmen and all that stuff. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all, and we look forward to seeing you at NAPE.
All right.
We'll create some more stories.
Yep. There you go.
Sure.
I think I might be of age to where I can wear tennis shoes to NAPE. I think I might have earned that. It's every year. That's my biggest decision. It's like, okay, is this the year I'm going to start wearing tennis shoes?
I'll join you, Brent. That way,
Let's do it. I think we'll start a trend.
Yeah.
I had a creepy mustache all summer. I mean, maybe I've earned the right to go tennis shoes. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, we can start talking on NAPE. Let's wrap this thing up. Thanks, Chad.
Absolutely. Thank you. And this has been the Landman TV series companion podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Enjoyed today's topic? Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Learn more at dudley-land.com. See you next episode.